Thank you very much, Katerina. So colleagues, we're moving on. Sorry for the short break. We think it's probably important just as a part of moving through the meeting and ensuring that we're all concentrated and focusing. I have the pleasure today to be able to introduce my boss first. I have two bosses who you can see on either side of the screen. One will introduce the other, but I will be introducing Cornelius. Cornelius is the Global Director for Child Protection at UNICEF. He has over 25 years of experience in managing child protection programs in Western, Eastern, and Southern Africa with UNICEF and Save the Children. Without further delay, Cornelius, over to you.
Thank you, Nance. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so thanks for the introduction, actually. I'm going to move on and then eventually definitely have the pleasure of introducing Annika. But before actually I introduce Annika, let me welcome everybody to this session. Their colleagues, representatives of UN agencies, civil society organizations, youth advocate, distinguished guests, all protocol observed. In 2019, we had the opportunity to develop a blueprint on how UNICEF and UNFPA would lead a global program towards the elimination of child marriage. We had everyone, including you, in that space, young people, civil society, academia, government, and our UN family, including our UNFPA colleagues, actually, which, as I said, I'll do the introduction later. Together, we had designed a bold, audacious, and transformative agenda geared for a decade of action. The program was bold because the challenge was phenomenal. At that time, we were talking about 100 million girls expected to become child brides over the next decade. Then came COVID with a big bang, and it has an exclamation mark because it came with a big bang. Today, our data finds that an additional 10 million more girls are at risk because of COVID-19 lockdown, school closures, movement constraints, and economic impacts on families as well as child pregnancy. As you're aware, in humanitarian settings like conflict and natural disaster, the risks are greater still. As a global community, we must not accept this. No, we cannot accept this. We cannot let COVID-19 roll back the progress we've made on this issue. Nor can we let it prevent us from continuing an important work, such as that done by the Global Programme to end this practice. Marriage is just one event in the life of a child, but fundamentally changes a child's life. And there's sadly no way we can press a rewind button. Once done, these girls are more likely to be out of school, to suffer health problems, and to become pregnant if they are before they are ready. But as a global community, we must also ask ourselves, what is the long-term cost of child marriage, not only to girls and the women they become, but also to societies and to the global progress of all? Because child marriage is not only a violation of human rights, it perpetuates gender inequality and power imbalances between men and women. It limits opportunities for girls and their society who lose out on their ideas, energy, and economic output for decades to come. But those of us who have stood against this practice know that progress is possible. That with the right programs and strategies in place, we can eliminate child marriage, even in high prevalence countries. As accelerating progress and preventing the rollback of our achievement in recent decades means learning from this lesson. It means adopting programs that we know work. UNICEF, together with UNFPA, is leading the largest global programs to end child marriage. Through 5 evidence-based strategies, we are working with government, civil society organizations, youth and feminist movements, and other partners to accelerate progress. First, since 2016, we have empowered close to 13 million girls to know their rights and exercise their choices on when and whom and if to marry. Second, we work with governments to enact comprehensive social protection measures like cash transfers that keep families afloat financially and encourage them to keep girls where they belong, in school, preparing their minds for the future world of work. Third, We're also working with governments to create a protective legal and policy framework that makes it illegal for a child to marry. We need legislation and enforcement now. Fourth, we're investing in advocacy and information programs at the community level, with over 66 million people engaged since 2016. Our experience at UNICEF shows that when we work directly with community leaders and with families, we can change minds and attitude that leads to child marriage in the first place. And fifth, we support and advocate for fully funded, gender responsive, scaled up healthcare protection services and counseling in every community. The community is there. The commitment is there. Countries have already agreed to the Sustainable Development Goals, which call for eliminating child marriage by 2030. But the gap between the intention and reality is vast. To meet the elimination goal, we have to continue to work together to accelerate our action, as mentioned earlier, to offset the impact of the pandemic on our progress to end child marriage. UNICEF is proud to stand with UNFPA and with the people joining in today, including government and civil society, to press for the accelerated change we need to see. And most of all, we are compelled to act for the brave young women in communities worldwide who resist this practice, calling for change even in the midst of the pandemic. For their sake and for the sake of the better, fairer, and more equal world we all want, let's recommit to ending child marriage. We have a duty to make sure that the post-pandemic world is a better one for girls everywhere. Thank you. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Annika, who is the Chief of Sexual and Reproductive Health Branch at UNFPA. She has a lifelong experience in sexual and reproductive health and rights that spans over 30 years. Annika is a registered midwife with 15 years of clinical work. She has a teacher's degree in healthcare science, a PhD in healthcare pedagogy. Prior to joining UNFPA in her current position, Annika was head of development cooperation and deputy head of mission at the Embassy of Sweden in Addis Ababa. Annika, my dear friend and colleague, I turn over to you.
Thank you, Cornelis, and thank you for that very comprehensive introduction. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, UNFPA and UNICEF colleagues and dear partners also from UNFPA. It's really a pleasure to welcome you to this biannual meeting of experts working to end child marriage in so many countries and regions across the world. A meeting of commitment, a meeting of solidarity. And I really want to echo everything that Cornelis has just said, but let me also recognize all the incredible work you have all been doing over the past 2 years and the results that we now see in the progress made in some parts of the world. As Cornelis said, it is possible and we can do it. We need critical information, services and opportunities, including comprehensive sexuality education, contraceptives, maternal health and GBV services and actions to mobilize communities around investing in girls. And my sentiments are echoed by the recent assessment of the Global Programme's adaptation to COVID-19 conditions, which really recognized the significant adaptation made by you and the program during the pandemic. Really, kudos to all. That was not an easy task. The assessment, of course, also recognized the work that remains to be done in improving and measuring the quality of what we do. At UNFPA, we are committed to constantly improving our efforts, and our new strategic plan sees child marriage at the crossroads of our work on sexual and reproductive health and rights, gender equality, and adolescence and youth. I want to take a moment, and I know we're running a little bit over time already, so let me just be very brief, but I really want to take a moment to appreciate the partnership and shared commitment we have developed with UNICEF over these years. And together, we have partnered with Girls Not Brides, many youth-led and women-led organizations, committed member states and leading voices across the world. Partnership of commitment, partnership of solidarity with all the girls in the world that need our voices. You are now about to hear from two such individuals today, powerful young women taking action to improve the lives of marginalized girls. First, let me introduce to you Purity Kagwiria with and for Girls Fund, Purposeful is the name of the organization. She's a feminist activist and a storyteller, and she's based in Nairobi, Kenya, and serves at Purposeful as the director for With and For Girls Fund and Collective, the world's only participatory fund by and for adolescent girls. That is really amazing. Prior to joining Purposeful, Ms. Kagwiria previously served as the executive director of Akili Dada, a leadership incubator for girls and young women based in Kenya. Over to you, Purity.
Thank you so much, Aneta. Good morning, everyone. Good day, wherever you are. Greetings from Freetown, where I'm currently sitting. I just had the opportunity this week to spend time with my colleagues in Sierra Leone, who I had not had an opportunity to meet because I started my current job when the pandemic just started. So I bring you greetings as I just recently learned howdy body and jambo from my people back in Kenya, as we would say. I'm very delighted to be here today. And I'll just be speaking a little bit about ways that we can fund girls or challenge ourselves to fund girls with dignity and keeping them at the center of the work that we do. So as funders, we do have a responsibility to girls to ensure that we are funding them in ways that continuously help lift them out of poverty, out of the various challenges that they are grappling with. And I have a couple of thoughts to share on better ways or things that we've been trying at the With and For Girls Fund that we feel can help us move us to the direction where we are doing right by girls. So one of the things we truly do know is girls have been resisting for generations, whether it's fighting against FGM or child marriage, anything that we can name, any challenge that is facing society, we do know that girls and women are always at the forefront. And they're not just at the forefront for themselves, they are also at the forefront in ways that help claim the rights of other members of the society. And as funders and actors, we can be more proactive in the ways that we resource our girls to continually fuel their activism. We can do this by ensuring that we are asking the girls what is it they need. We can create mechanisms that allow us to listen to girls and recognize the dynamic ways in which they are organizing. We as funders have to recognize that there is no really reference book on ways of funding girls, because girlhood being a very transitory period, it means that we constantly have to learn and adapt. And for a long time, we've asked the girls and the women that we fund to adapt to our ways as funders. And I believe that time has come for us as we respond, even in this period that we are living in a pandemic and beyond, as we respond, we have to take the effort to or take the necessary measures to ensure that we are actually moving ourselves more towards the girls and the women that we fund, so that we can listen to them and respond to their needs in the ways that they want to be responded to. And one of the things I've been thinking about, and of course this critique, I'm sure you've heard it before, is that girls, the way we've been funding girls and continue to fund girls in many spaces is really through the Girl Dividend Framework. And this framework says in most cases that if we empower a girl, we empower a community and a nation. So it's always seen that our empowerment of girls is not just for them because they deserve to be helped to move beyond their challenges. We are always tying other things to them, which of course it has worked in some ways, but it has continued to perpetuate that girls and women are the backbones of economy. They carry the load, and yet we give them very little resources to be able to really carry the world in the ways that we are asking them to. We do need to fund girls in ways that allow them to continue being girls without having to be negated as parents, as caregivers, as caretakers of various members of the society. When a girl has been married, of course, we know she quickly transitions from being a child. Even though she's a child, we don't treat them as children, we don't fund them as children. We still don't fund them as women because they're in between there. So how can we as funders challenge ourselves to think beyond this binary of how we've been funding girls and ensure that we are really giving them the space and a chance to navigate their current lived experiences in the best ways possible. And I do think some of those best ways possible is actually spending time with girls, not sending people we think are expert on girls, but actually we ourselves as actors, as funders, spending the time that is needed to really ensure that we are hearing from girls, and we are not just hearing for the sake of it, we are actually actioning that which they are asking us to do. And we know some of the things they're asking us to do is to provide spaces for intergenerational learning and dialogue. They're asking us to provide them funding that is based on activity or on projects or a specific activity that they're organizing around, as opposed to how we always want them to fit in our very long frameworks that sometimes cast a vision of 2 to 3 years. Sometimes when girls are organizing, they don't have that, but the work that they do continue to influence our communities. And we do owe it to girls to actually fund them in ways that allow them to be imaginative, to dream and to be themselves, and to really work in ways that they feel this is the best way they can work. The other call I would make to us as funders is really, and actors on the ground, is to trust girls with resources. We tend to fund girls, of course, in ways that continually keep them in cycles of poverty. When we are funding a girl activist or a girl activism initiative, we will give them project funding that doesn't recognize that these girls have bills to pay, these girls have other people that they are taking care of. We don't fund girls the way we are treated by our own organizations. And it would be ideal if we challenged ourselves to actually trust girls with resources that allow them to dream long-term, even though they continue to organize based on things that are happening here and now. We can actually allow them to have the space, to give them enough resources to have the space to actually dream and think about their work and their initiatives for the longer term. And that way, I believe we will see them continue to contribute to the changes that we want to see. We can fund girls more directly and with generosity. I think there's a tap of generosity that we as funders need to activate so that we can continually fund girls from a place that allows them even to be generous to themselves, to have the generosity of even
So it seems like the connection is unfortunately a bit broken down. Why don't I hand over to you, Cornelius, or Annika, to introduce our second speaker?
Okay, I think that's me. So sorry for that. But I just wanted to say that Purity, I hope that everyone listened to every word you had to say, because it was just filled with such important messages. Without further ado, I also would like to introduce our second speaker today, Meenakshi Ruela Prabha. Meenakshi Ruela is a 26-year-old social work professional who identifies as an intersectional feminist. Her work and interest areas span across issues of gender, SRHR, early and child marriage, and finally youth leadership. Ruela is today program coordinator at the non-governmental organization Prabha. Over to you.
Thanks, Annika. Hello, everyone, and it has been really powerful to hear everyone share their experiences. I am Meenakshi from New Delhi, India, and today I am here to share some of my life experiences and how they impacted the way I have engaged with the issue of early and child marriage. Through the past few years, I have gotten the chance to work on the issue with Prabha, which is a youth development organization that works on creating spaces and an ecosystem for young people to voice their opinions on issues that are relevant to them. Now coming back to the theme, early and child marriage is a traditional practice predominant in the South Asian context. It's fueled by poverty, social norms, and gender discrimination. Unmarried girls are often viewed as an economic liability and a potential risk to the family honor. Marriage at a young age prevents young girls from exercising agency, making important life decisions. Sorry, my bad. Okay. important life decisions and securing basic freedom, including having aspirations, pursuing opportunities for education, earning sustainable livelihood, and accessing sexual health and rights, among others. It also reinforces existing gender inequalities among different economic classes, castes, religious, and ethnic groups. As per the report by UNICEF, every year at least 1.5 million girls under 18 get married in India, which makes it home to one of the largest number of child brides in the world, accounting for a third of the global total. While legal interventions may play a role in reducing the cases of early and child marriage, the enforcement of such laws is very low. Moreover, unless there is a space for young girls to build and exercise their agency, early marriages will continue. It is therefore necessary to think of a rights-based approach that develops young girls' agency to make their own decisions. Through Prava's intervention, My Life Mere Faisle, which translates as My Life, My Decisions, I have gotten the chance to work on the issue of early and child marriage through the psychosocial approach, enabling young girls to take charge of one's lives and decisions. My journey with this issue began while I was still studying, where I experienced the real-time challenges that follow the lives of young girls in the country. While I was trying to challenge my notions and those of my family, I found myself lacking capacities and tools that I now know are critical in claiming my agency. This is why I believe it's important to invest in capacities like aspiration building so that young girls can envision their own dreams, conflict resolution so that they feel equipped to resolve interpersonal and intrapersonal conflicts that might arise when they articulate their aspirations, and negotiation, which is key while working in a system with stakeholders. These are some of the capacities which will support young girls to access and actualize their rights. While working, I recognize the need to apply the same capacities in order to claim agency over critical decisions of my lives. It took me to challenge myself, seek support, and continue practicing. And when I did that consistently, I saw a significant change in my family's behavior when they started seeing me as a key player in the decision-making process. So instead of forcing me to believe what they think is right for me in terms of career choice, sexual and reproductive rights, who do I choose to marry, and when do I choose to marry, they started opening up to asking me questions and truly make an effort to listen to me about my dreams and aspirations and the whys behind them. It really took me years to arrive here with them, and we still have a long way to go. However, going through this process and living the impact, I have truly started believing in the power of this work. So in the South Asian context, young girls are heavily dependent on stakeholders like family, institutions, and local leaders. So how can we create a space for them to navigate and negotiate within the system so as to prevent backlash from the community at large? It's critical to make space for collaborative solutioning and decision-making between young girls and stakeholders. Imagining a shared power equation where there's between both girls and stakeholders, where there's space for intergenerational dialogue to initiate the process of learning from each other's experiences and building trust in collaborative decision-making process where young girls are seen as responsible citizens and decision makers. The sustainable way to engage with development work and agency building process is to create a supportive ecosystem where there's space to contextualize the success indicators vis-a-vis what agency means for young girls from diverse communities. For example, it could mean choosing when to marry and who to marry for me. It could mean choosing to opt for higher education for a girl in Bihar. It could mean choosing to go outside the house to work for a girl in Uttar Pradesh, and choosing who to be friends with for someone in Rajasthan. My wish going forward is for us to work on amplifying the voices of young girls and building their agency so that they can make decisions that shape their future and take charge of their lives. I imagine a world where young girls can discover their aspirations, identify the barriers and fears that stop them, build skills that will help them deal with conflicts and negotiate with their parents, so they support them to pursue their passions and fulfill their dreams. So in order to advance the agenda to achieve SDG 5.3, we need to put young girls at the center and cut across different sectors. It's time to create spaces where young girls can exercise their agency, make important life decisions, and secure basic freedom, including having aspirations, pursuing opportunities for education, career, sustainable livelihood, have decision-making space around marriage, mobility, lifestyle choices, and accessing sexual health and rights, among others. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cornelius. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you, Annika. Thank you very much, actually, Manishki. I don't know if Purity is still with us, actually. I know she has to leave, but there was one question that that came up. Can you give us a specific example of funding girls' activism?
All right, yeah. So I do have a lot of examples of funding girls' activism. Like in this period of the pandemic, we've been able to fund girls, for example, to be able to access technology so that they can engage with other girls and to continue holding their safe spaces in the work that they are doing. So one of the things that Purposeful does in Sierra Leone is actually host safe spaces for girls. And in the recent past, we have been able to provide mobile phones and data to girls so that they are able to connect with each other and provide SRHR education for them and allow them access to mentors who are able to facilitate those sessions. And of course, we know as a result of the pandemic, girls have been removed from the safe spaces, which are sometimes schools and other places that they go to for safety. But as one of the ways we've really been trying to address that is ensuring that even as we try and respond to the challenges that have been brought about by the pandemic, we continue to create and provide for those spaces for girls to continue to meet.
Thank you, Purity. And I know that you have to leave. I hear you've said you're in my hometown, Freetown. Please enjoy it, okay? I'm sure the girls and the women and the people will treat you well.
Thank you, Cornelius.
Right. I think we've come to the end of this session. There's a hand up, but I wanted to suggest that what we can do, if you can put your question, Lucy, if you can put your question actually in the chat, and there's a commitment to respond to all the questions that have come up, okay? And let me turn back now actually to Katerina.